Okay, here's the math problem that I'm stuck on and I need to figure out. Essentially what I'm asking is, or what I want to know is, what's the equation to figure out who wins the battle? And here's the situation. We've got radiation minnows, the dangerous kind of radiation, the very poisonous James Bondy radiation, versus heat minnows, the heat radiation that is it's dangerous in that it does damage, but it's not. I'm not referring. Radiation minnows and heat minnows are completely different things. Don't confuse them. Here we can see the pictures. Here's the situation. We have 5 rad minnows, and that's the denotation for the quantity of rad minnows. Over here, 9 heat minnows. Here's the denotation for heat minnows. That's the variable or what have you. So we got 5 rad minnows versus 9 heat minnows. They're all in the tank swimming around, fighting each other. Rad minnow. Here's the stats on the rad minnows. So they got 100 health each. That's the denotation. They deal 20 damage per second to heat minnows specifically. They don't deal it to themselves. And the catch is they only deal it to one at a time. So all 5 of these fish are dealing their damage to one fish at a time until it dies, and then they move on, dealing all that damage. All damage is preserved or conserved in that all points of damage that seep out of these guys, all 20 points of damage per second, always go up to a single heat minnow, and it carries over. If this minnow dies, then the carryover goes to here. And here's the denotation for damage per second. It's not used. It's not that big of a deal. Yeah. So let's move on. Who wins the battle? How do you figure that out with those stats? Because you can see that you can figure it out. They're dealing 20 damage per second. Wow, this is going to be a quick battle. I didn't realize that. How do you figure out who wins, though? And what about when you change the quantity of fish? What about when you change R, N, or HN? What is the equation to figure this out? And here's one of the many equations that I've written down out of logic. And yeah, I'm not really sure that that's the way you do it, because I end up with kind of a paradox, but I'll just explain where I'm at now, where I'm stumped. But if you can already tell how to do it, then don't watch the rest of this, because I'm like 90% sure it's a dead end. And I took it to be that the first step to solving that problem is by solving dps of t, which then would lead to everything. This is the equation for the function for the damage per second at a time of the radiation fish. Remember, R is radiation fish. R dps of t equals the damage per second of the radiation fish, which is 20. That's a constant. Don't confuse it with this, although it's very easy to confuse it with that, times the quantity of fish. So if you take dps times the quantity of fish, you're getting the effective damage per second in the scenario of the radiation fish. But dps of time is not equal to dps of all of those fish. You have to account for when the fish die, when these silly radiation fish kill off one of these, it changes how much DPS is done. Likewise, when these fish manage to kill off a radiation fish over so many seconds, I hope they can do it in this scenario. Jesus. Yeah, they can. Yeah, we got to figure that out. So we have to account for N at T, the quantity of radiation fish at T. And to account for that, this equation was used. Or, I mean, this, I don't know. Yeah, that's an inequality, I guess. That segment, that little snippet, is used. Everything within these brackets here. And I use the floor symbol by the way. Okay, so we have radiation fish, the quantity of radiation fish, the starting quantity, I should point out, and that is 5. That's these guys, the fish up there, that's 5, minus, then we have the integral from 0 to t t, remember we're linking back to t, of the DPS equation for a given time of the heat fish. That's this equation, but not for R, but for H. So it like goes in a loop. Like then I could write out this same equation down below, only have it H DPS of t, and I get the same conundrum. It links back to R DPS of t, which you don't know. Like it's a huge loop. What am I supposed to do? So so it's my explanation. Probably doing a bad job, but the quantity of radiation fish minus what this translates to in English is the total amount of damage done so far by the radiation fish. Oh no, by the heat fish, the opposing things. Because remember, as the heat fish are swimming around in the tank dealing damage, they're dealing damage and they're reducing the number of radiation fish. They're reducing this. So it's a discrete quantity too. You can't have half a fish swimming out there, so that's why we use the floor function. And so when you take total damage done so far by the heat fish, divide it by the HP of each radiation fish, the fish that are getting dealt damage, you are produced with the number of fish that have been killed, the number of radiation fish that have been killed so far. And that comes out to be decimal, but then you use the floor function, and then it's discrete. It's like just 1, or it ticks up to 2, or it ticks up to 3. So that's what I'm trying to figure out, and I just gave up on it. I'm supposed to be doing something about, like, 1040. I'm supposed to know how to do a 1040 right now, and I don't have any idea how to do that. So I've got to get back to that. But if you know how to figure this out, what the equation is, I'd appreciate it if you'd enlighten me, or like tell me who to ask. Thanks.